So hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Amesie's Corner. How are you all doing out there? So I'm in here, Saab Sundays, working on the 96, trying to get that trunk patched up. But I think it's a good time to give you guys a little update. I gotta say, the RallyWagon fans, you guys are some of the most patient fans out there. So the RallyWagon here, this is an 01 Saab 9.5 wagon that I bought off of one of our customers about 3 years ago. Oddly enough, that customer is now one of the ladies as a receptionist here. She now works here. But yeah, I bought this car off of her about 3 years ago for 300 bucks. It needed just some minor stuff, some brake work. The windshield was cracked. You guys saw that windshield get replaced on a time lapse way back then. And I asked you guys what we should do with this car. You know, what do we do with a $300 wagon that I didn't necessarily need at the time? And far and away, I kind of threw it out there tongue-in-cheek that I wanted to make an off-road version of this car, kind of like a Volvo XC70 off-road type thing. It is only two-wheel drive, so it wasn't for like hardcore off-roading, more just going down the kind of rough trails that a normal car wouldn't get down. You tear your oil pan off. So what I did is I developed my own 2.5-inch lift kit, probably closer to 3 inches if you look at it next to a stock version. I wish I had another wagon sitting here next to it to compare it. But yeah, I built this car to go down some trails that I grew up on. I apologize if there's any wind noise, a little bit of wind today. But yeah, I built this car to go down some trails that I grew up on. However, we took it off-road once last winter. The conditions were way tougher than I should have been out there in. We ended up ripping the airbox out of it and some undershield, and it was a ton of fun, but it was scary at the same time. And that's the only time I've actually had this car off-road. And the trouble is, I think some people watch my videos, watch my episodes, and see some of the places I go, and they go there to try to, you know, enjoy the stuff I enjoy and the places I enjoy. The trouble is, not everyone is as responsible as I am, and these places where I built this car to go are all completely closed off. Gates put up, big burly gates put up, no off-road motorized vehicle signs, big fines, there's fines, you're gonna get your car towed out and all that. So what happened is, I think you guys, someone that may be watching now, or a group of you, saw we went to that place in Byfield and saw that it was open and went out there shortly after that video and made a huge mess of the place. They went out there in big off-road vehicles. I don't know what it was, probably 44-inch tires, and they went way off the trail in a bunch of areas and totally tore up all the glacial anomaly rocks. Glacial anomalies being up here in New England, we have a lot of strange rock structures everywhere, which back when the glaciers had 2 miles of ice over us, it just left these rocks in weird spots. And they're really cool to go out and hang out next to, and some of them are really fun to crawl over with your big meaty truck. The trouble is, when you go off-road, the people that go hiking out in these places complain, and the next thing you know, bang, we got gates, we can't go. So every place I built this car to go, I can't take it. Can't go there in it. And oddly enough, that's why the episodes where we found all of those cool cars out in the woods and we went trail trucking with remote control trail trucks, the reason we went in those remote control trail trucks was because I couldn't take the car I built to take out there, which stinks. But I do have the car, and it is lifted, and it is a ton of fun to drive. Those asking, does it drive any different? Not really. When I first lifted it, I noticed every time you got in and out of it, your foot went down further, and you know, you felt higher up inside of it. Is it more tippy? Not at all. Driving it, I think it actually handles better as a lifted wagon than it did at its stock height. It takes the uneven pavement in a corner much better. Maybe part of that's because when we did the lift, we replaced the worn-out shocks with some nice new ones. But anyways, let's get this thing in. Let's get this thing up on the lift and see how it's faring. So yeah, we got this thing all up on the lift. You can actually see how much droop we have on the front suspension here. Same with the rear, because we didn't max the suspension out. We didn't like put, you know, spacers on the springs to kind of force the springs down. The springs have the same loading as it would have when it was stock. We just changed the position. You can see that upper mount is cut down. Yeah, so you can see the droop on it. So it still has just as much suspension travel as it used to have, just, you know, just about 3 inches lower than it used to be. You can kind of get an idea of the ground clearance when it's all maxed out there. Not that you really have that when you're going through the trail, about half that. So. All right, we'll start at the rear suspension. Those of you remember the build, this was pretty well documented, but for those of you newish to the show, what we did is I used the stock springs, which we actually took the whole shock, spring, and upper bucket out of a junk car over at the Duke of Saab's little mini junkyard, so we're not changing any of my original parts. I still have the original suspension for this car, so if I had any kind of issues, I could have just swapped back to the factory setup. But you know, we've been on thousands of miles with no trouble. So what I did is I used these spacers here, these adjustable coil spacers. These are we came, I don't know if any of you remember Project Rice Bowl. We put the stock SI suspension back in there, and it had these lifters on it, these you know, coil adjusters, and they're working really good in this capacity. You know, what I said we had done is the upper mount right there used to be 3 inches taller. I cut 3 inches off, welded it up, so we had the cup to hold the spring bushing up there, the shock bushing, the upper mount. So that's all the way it would have been, just 3 inches lower. We got those new VSV API blah blah cheapo shocks. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on it. Now when we lifted this car, the suspension, or the caster, camber, blah blah blah, the camber would have been off, so we picked up these SPC lower brackets. Now anybody that has a Saab 9.5 or a Saab 9.5 wagon or something like this that has a problem with camber on the rear wheels, from the factory there's no adjustment, but they make these adjustable lower arms which are meant for a Saturn L200. And those of you who don't know, this is a platform car that is shared with an L200 Saturn. And as far as the suspension goes, it's all exactly the same, only they offer these, which are really meant for lowering. If you're going to lower the car, you would have the same issue, and that's what those were really meant for. But they work great for lifting it. I was able to keep the caster, I keep getting mixed up, keep the camber set to where I needed it, or make it adjustable for the alignment rack. Yeah, so back here everything's working great. We did an alignment after we put it in, and it aligned up really well. Tracks really well. We'll go for a ride in a few minutes, and we'll see if we can get the body rolling. I know we really won't. And then in the front was really simple. All we did in the front, and we'll show it when we go down, is I made strut hat spacers. I don't know if you guys can see way up, we can just barely see a little of it hanging out, which are a fixed height. I couldn't make those adjustable. It would have been too much work. I kind of thought about making them like a stackable shim. It ended up being easier for me just to make them solid, and the adjustability in the rear compensates to match the front. So if I needed to match anything and make sure the thing's got an even ride height or a little bit of a rake, I was able to adjust it there. So yeah, that's about the lift on it. A few things I've still got to do, but I don't know if I really have to. I was going to lengthen these, the sway bar links here, right there. Those could use a little lengthening to match, you know, 2.5, 3 inches. What I would do is just cut that, take an old blown out one, and just weld in an extra piece, you know, right in the middle there to make them longer. But I really haven't had much of an issue. There's a little bit of knock-in because the sway bar isn't in the optimal position, but it doesn't seem to mind. Same with the rear, just easy to make them longer, but I really don't think it's necessary. The car handles great, goes down the road great. Now, the car has some mechanical issues. We still have a blown out CV shaft, which happened shortly after the lift because the angles are more. It's not making any noise, it's just making a mess. The other side's all right. Got some oil leaks. The car has 230,000 miles on it, and I bought it for $300. We did a head gasket, but it's got some pretty good oil leaks going on. There's an oil catch can up there. If you look way up, it's leaking. But like I'm saying, this car has 230,000 miles. This is considered to be version 1. This is V1 RallyWagon, and it was more of a test bed to make sure this would work. Now the plan now, because this car is getting a little rough around the edges, we got some rust. That's actually a lot worse than it looks because it goes way inside. The HVAC system, when we put this this bull bar on the front a year ago right now, we just bumped one of the AC lines. I mean, they're pretty rusty. Those are cooler lines, but there's, right here, we bumped one of those and it let all the refrigerant out. I never got around to fixing it because, I've too many cars to worry about that. And recently the HVAC system inside has started to cause some problems. It's stuck on, blowing out the vents. I can't get it to go to defrost or floor. The heater control valve under the hood where the heater hoses go to, that got all dried out. The plastic all cracked and started leaking, so I just bypassed the heater core. So I have to find another wagon to replace this wagon. All of these lift parts, they all just bolt in. I could probably swap everything over to another car in about 45 minutes. So I'm on the lookout for a reasonably low mileage, good example of an 01 or a first gen 9.5 wagon. I'd like an 02 or an 03 with the manual auto transmission. I think that'd be cool. That's another thing, the transmission in this car is starting to show its age. If you get on the highway and get on it trying to pass, you get a traction light or a transmission warning light, and the torque converter clutch is starting to wear out in the torque converter. And it's just not worth it to rebuild everything this car needs, between taking the HVAC system apart and making that so it'd even be comfortable to drive, fixing all the rust, and then the interior is getting a little rough and around the edges. So it was a $300 car. It's done its job. I'm still going to keep driving it. I'll probably go get a sticker on it. I need them due for an inspection this month. So yeah, we're going to be swapping everything over to another RallyWagon and hopefully find some place to enjoy these things. But for now, why don't we get this thing down off the lift and go around the block in it and see how it drives. I don't think I've taken a test drive with you guys since we lifted it. I apologize for that. But yeah, let's go take some corners. Feels like home. Feels like my daily driver. So, you might hear a little bit of rattling. I got a little bit of an exhaust rattle. We put that piece of piping we got from Brandy Brow Junkyard, but one of the hangers rattles a little bit. I probably should have fixed it while I was up on the lift, but the mechanic's car is always the one last to be fixed right, especially if you own 5 of them. So anyways, I don't have anybody to do any outside shots of the car to see how it goes around corners, but we'll just do a quick little driving feel test of it. Now, goes down the road nice and straight, just like it used to. No clunks from the suspension, no weird pulls over bumps. I was kind of afraid we might have some bump steer. Bump steer is a condition that happens when you hit a bump and the steering geometry, because it's at an angle, you hit a bump, it suddenly goes to straight. The wheels can sometimes turn in or out. That doesn't happen in this car. I haven't had any bump steer. Nice and flat cornering, hard braking, doesn't dive. Sometimes when you lift a vehicle, it can exaggerate weight transfer. Weight transfer can be exaggerated, and a little bit of body roll because it's a little higher center of gravity, but nothing more than really what it had before with the weak shocks in the back. Yeah, not bad. So anyways, yeah, it drives like a normal car. And it accelerates just as good as it used to. I mean, for all outward appearances, from driving the car, from inside of here, I would never know that the suspension's been modified. nice driving car. So we're going to take this corner a little fast. Maybe we'll get some tire squeal. Yep. But it wasn't rolling all over the place. It didn't feel like I was in a boat. Hard braking. And I know it's kind of hard to translate from a video. At a yard sale. Everyone's out in the street. So all in all, really can't tell it's lifted from the inside of it. And yeah, not all over the place, not all bumpy and clunky. I wish we could go off-road. Like I said, it's a real shame that all the places I built this car to go, can't go there anymore. And I honestly don't know of any place else I would really want to bring it. I guess if there was another sand pit around that I don't know of, maybe we can get off-road. If anybody out there knows any good places where I'm not going to get, you know, a $20,000 towing bill because I went off-road. I've heard some horror stories about people taking their trucks off someplace they weren't supposed to go and get caught, and then they have to get an off-road tow for an exorbitant amount of money. So until I can find a place to take it off-road, I guess we're in search of another one. So yeah, if anybody out there knows of any Saab 9.5 wagons, I'd definitely in the market for a cheap one. So maybe something that needs a head gasket. Well, anyways, guys, I just wanted to do a quick little update. Didn't really get into it as much as I would have liked, but a quick little update on why we haven't seen much of the RallyWagon and how it's holding up. It's a little rough around the edges, but it was when I bought it, and the modifications are going to go to the next one. And stay tuned. Sometime in the near future, we'll be breaking this car down and making version 2 of it. So, anyways, guys, thumbs up and much appreciated. Comments down below. I read every single one, even though I can possibly answer all of them. There's just way too many to keep up with, but I do read them all and I do appreciate them all. And anyways, guys, and on that note, and until next time, keep it out of the cabbage.